is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
Welcome to the MorganMan Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Stacy Cole Morgan. Here on the MorganMan Sports Podcast, we talk Atlanta Falcons news, pre-game predictions, and all other news surrounding the Atlanta Falcons.
Touchdown, Atlanta!
Also on the podcast, we talk Call of Duty League, esports, covering Roster Mania, major predictions, COD champs, player trades, and much more to get you ready for every single CDL weekend.
Scuff goes through, and Scuff snaps, wins the one-on-one, and Optic with the reverse sweep.
If that sounds good with you, put on your Falcons jersey, grab your gaming headset, and let's get this show started. What is going on, you guys? I'm your host, Stacy Cole Morgan, and you are listening to the MorganMan Sports Podcast here on Spotify, Google Podcasts, GoodPod HQ, or wherever you find your preferred podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, today we are talking about the Atlanta FaZe taking on the Boston Breach in Cloud9, New York, all in the last weekend of the Major 1 tournament online qualifiers. Guys, it is an action-packed weekend for Atlanta FaZe, and I'm super excited about it. And I'm also super excited about talking with the recent hire of Jeff Ulrich to the Atlanta Falcons, ladies and gentlemen. So this is going to be an interesting show right here. So without any further delay, let's go get straight into today's action. All right, guys. So we are going to start things off with the Atlanta FaZe side of things for the podcast right here, ladies and gentlemen. And before we do go any further, I do want to quickly mention that the full show length is available on and exclusively now on the Belly Up Sports YouTube channel and on their website through the article blog page. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. I will be now exclusively on bellyupsports.com and on the YouTube channel for full show length episodes. But fear not, I will have segments of the podcast here on my personal YouTube channel. I might upload just one segment and then link you to the Belly Up Sports website or their YouTube channel, so that way you can watch the full episode right there. It is still audio only right now with the headliner video background and everything, ladies and gentlemen. I am trying to work on getting the video side up and running where you will see my beautiful face on both sides of the YouTube channels and all that. So I am working on that. I'm still having a lot of issues with my laptop when it comes to recording, and the video is just lagging when playing back. So, but in the meantime, we're still audio only with the headliner background for the video version on YouTube. So I do want to quickly just mention that before we move any further. So getting back on topic with the Atlanta FaZe right here, ladies and gentlemen. So the Atlanta FaZe is ranked 4th. Now in the regular season, they've had a hot win coming off the Minor 1 tournament, had a dominant win against the Minnesota Rocker this past weekend in a 3-1 fashion. Definitely love seeing that. And now they got pretty much an easy schedule for this online qualifiers the last weekend going into the Major 1 tournament. And guys, I'm telling you, I'm super excited about it, honestly. So the Atlanta FaZe will face off against the Boston Breach this Friday, January 24th at 6 p.m. Eastern, and against Cloud9 New York this Sunday, January 26th at 4:30 p.m. So I'm looking forward to it. So let's break down the stats right here. So if you go into overall team stats, I don't really get into much of the individual player stats right here, not unless it is recapping that matchup from the previous weekend. So the Boston Breach, ladies and gentlemen, they are pretty much a good team in statistically every single category right now in the CDL, along with the Atlanta FaZe. So I'll cover Atlanta FaZe's stats in Hardpoint, Search and Destroy, and Control first. So for Hardpoint win percentage, Atlanta FaZe sits number 1 with a 70.6% win percentage. Hardpoint KD sitting at second place with a 1.10. Hardpoint score plus or minus, Atlanta FaZe is in the plus, obviously, with a 29.88, sitting second place behind Optic Texas. Search and Destroy, Atlanta FaZe is fourth overall in the CDL, sitting at a 54.5% S&D win percentage. Third place in Search and Destroy KD with a 1.04, right above the Boston Breach. Search and Destroy round wins, Atlanta FaZe is third place with a 5.0 win percentage, and Search and Destroy round plus or minus sitting at a third place spot with a 0.64 plus or minus. Now for Control, Atlanta FaZe really is not nowhere in this category in the top 5. Those are the only teams I do cover is in the top 5. And both Boston Breach and Atlanta FaZe is nowhere to be found in the top 5 right here. So I do want to quickly mention that right there. And let alone even New York, Cloud9 New York right here. They're not even in the top 5. Nowhere. In Hardpoint, S&D, and Control. So obviously we don't even have to worry about them. It's just the Boston Breach. So for the Boston Breach, they are fourth. 2 places behind the Atlanta FaZe, sitting at fourth overall with a 1.02 in overall KD, while Atlanta FaZe is a 1.05, sitting behind Optic Texas. For hardpoint win percentage, Boston Breach is 2 spots behind Atlanta FaZe at third place overall, sitting at 66.7%. And overall hardpoint win percentage, hardpoint KD, Atlanta FaZe is second, while Boston Breach is third with a 1.04 KD in hardpoints. Boston Breach is in the top 2, sitting at second overall with a 231.33 hardpoint score, just behind Optic Texas. So if I'm Atlanta FaZe, staying on the hardpoint to get the score up is crucial this weekend if you want to beat the Boston Breach. Don't rotate out, don't sub out, stay on the hardpoint, because the longer you stay on it, because obviously Boston Breach, they like sitting on that hardpoint as much as possible when their life depends on it. And it really does. The Atlanta FaZe is going to have to take control of that and prevent Boston Breach from doing it. And then Atlanta FaZe has got to sit on that hardpoint. They cannot, even for 1 minute second, get off that hardpoint, because every point against the Boston Breach will matter this weekend. For hardpoint score plus or minus, the Boston Breach is behind Atlanta FaZe at a 26.42, sitting at third place overall. Now for Search and Destroy win percentage, right here, ladies and gentlemen, Atlanta FaZe only takes over this category in win percentage. But now for the KD ratio, Boston Breach sits behind Atlanta FaZe with a 1.02 in fourth place for KD. For Search and Destroy round wins, Boston Breach sits at fourth overall with a 4.91 and fourth place overall with a 0.45 in the Search and Destroy round plus or minus. And again, Control, Cloud9 New York, and Boston Breach and Atlanta FaZe is nowhere to be found in the top 5. So if you were to ask me, ladies and gentlemen, who is going to win this weekend? Me personally, obviously Atlanta FaZe in both series. Against Cloud9 New York, obviously that should be a 3-0. Atlanta FaZe, that should be their warm-up match going into the Major 1 tournament weekend itself. That will obviously start on a Thursday, go all the way through Sunday, which will be Championship Sunday for the CDL. Now against the Boston Breach, which will be their first opponent, thank Lord, I think this is going to be a 3-1. And the reason I say that is because that control is going to be crucial for the Atlanta FaZe and as well as for Boston Breach. Because both teams, not even in the top 5, they can't really control themselves in that control series. They get a hot streak going, then they lose it in the offensive round or defensive round. They lose lives too quickly. They just don't pay attention as much when the clock is ticking and the hill time is just, coming up slowly. and they're losing progression. So Atlanta FaZe has really got to step things up this weekend. Be aggressive, because I noticed against the Carolina Royal Ravens during the Minor 1 tournament, they were up 2-0. They were up 2-0 against the Ravens, but they were aggressive. They stayed on the Ravens' butts pretty much the entire time, and then they just slipped it away because they thought, hey, we're up 2-0, we can sit back a little bit and win this thing. But no, the Ravens came back, 3-2'd the Atlanta FaZe, and then went into a map 4, which ultimately Atlanta FaZe did win. But still, they could have had a chance to sweep the Ravens during that Minor 1 tournament, but did not do so. So staying aggressive, in control, will win you against the Boston Breach, and staying on the point in hard point is going to be the ultimate key to victory for the Atlanta FaZe. No subbing out, no waiting for backup, no waiting for lanes to open, no nothing. If you're a BZ and Salem, you're sitting in that hard point regardless of the situation. I don't care if it's a 4v2. You're sitting in that hill, you're defending it until your last breath, or to your next respawn, whatever. So that is my keys to victory against the Boston Breach right there. And of course for Cloud9 New York, really they're not statistically nowhere in the top 5 or any of these right here, but still that don't mean that they're not going to be a threat, which I've seen their gameplay style, and they're very good at hardpoint. So they could be a sneaky team on hardpoint, but the way Atlanta FaZe is playing, this should just honestly be a blowout. But again, just don't go into this weekend thinking that you're just going to blow them out, because it could be the other way around, and Cloud9 New York could start turning things around.